our subject should be about authors, poets, and people in the literary community. Some of the noted authors worldwide would be Maya Angelou, Langston Hughes, Wright, James Baldwin.
Frantz Fanon.
Okay.
It's been a ton. We've had a rich history of black literary.
Well, tonight I brought in a very special guest. I wanted to mention too about some of the Ohioans, like Toni Morrison. Who else? Langston Hughes. Who else is from Ohio? There are many authors that I just can't think of right now, but I just wanted to bring in my special guest today and my son. Our special guest today is Mr. Marcel Pittman.
Marcus.
Say it again.
Marcus
Pittman. My bad. I apologize. Just probably got it on my mind.
No problem.
And my son, Greg Levy. I'm going to turn over this interview to you guys so that y'all could talk guy talk. Have a good one.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
So Marcus is here today. He's written a book called Unlovable.
Yes.
Question, what gave you the thought to write a book?
So he told me to write a book about my childhood. And months went by before I actually began to really put the pen to the paper and write about it, because I struggled with the thought of what is it about my childhood that is significant enough that would merit a book being written about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it really took a long time before I was really able to get into the project, because I didn't see, the purpose behind it. But reluctantly, as I began to, put thoughts together and put thoughts on paper, I kind of saw it, coming together. And, it took 5 years to write.
Oh, wow.
From 2012 to 2017, because it was a struggle. But I'm glad that I listened, and I'm glad that I followed through in writing it.
Excellent. Before we get into the book, I'm super intrigued with the title of it, but we'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah.
But let's just get into Mr. Marcus.
Yes,
so let me just ask you a simple question. When you were a 13-year-old, what grade is that? Maybe eighth grade?
Eighth grade.
What was your dream? What was Marcus thinking about? What was in his mind?
Being a basketball player. Absolutely. I was probably no different from my peers in that regard, wanting to either be a football player, basketball player, athlete, or something like that. But I was too big of a Michael Jordan fan to not consider basketball.
Yeah.
That bubble didn't get burst until high school.
To high school, right.
After trying out and not making it, then it was like, okay, this isn't for me. Yeah.
So, going on childhood, let me just ask you a question. What's something memorable about childhood? And first, a positive direction. As far as if you can just think of one thing that makes you a pivotal moment to the positive.
Okay.
And then also, what's a pivotal thing, or it could be a series of things, that you recognize in your childhood as a defining thing?
Wow. A pivotal moment to the positive. The first thing that jumps out at me, and it's not super, it wasn't life-changing or anything like that. But I recall when I was a little boy, I couldn't have been no older than 7. I remember being in the bathroom mirror, looking at myself. I was smiling into the mirror, and I thought something was wrong with my smile.
Oh, wow.
I thought something was wrong with my smile. Maybe it was my teeth, maybe it was something, but I just thought that I didn't have a good smile. And I went to my mother and I said, Mama, something wrong with my smile. And she said, well, just keep smiling and somebody's going to like your smile one day. But for me, I didn't expect her to say that. That wasn't what I thought her response was going to be.
Oh wow.
And it was the impact that statement had on me was like, okay, it was an encouraging thing to say, like, don't worry about what you think is a problem right now. Someone's gonna like your smile.
Yeah.
So that was encouraging, and that was a boost to my self-esteem.
Oh sweet.
Yeah.
So the other side.
Yeah. Something to the negative.
Yeah.
Well, and I touch on it in the book, because the book is not about my entire childhood. It's about a 6-year period in my childhood, from second grade to 8th grade. I would just say the 3rd grade as a whole.
Oh wow.
I had a teacher in the 3rd grade in my elementary school. My homeroom teacher, she just made things really, really difficult for me. Caucasian woman whose name I won't say. I give her a fictitious name in the book.
Oh wow. That's gracious.
But,
gracious of you.
yeah. But she was very instrumental in ruining self-esteem for me.
Wow.
So I found myself years later, after leaving her class and so forth, and it wasn't just that, it wasn't just her, it was other things as well. Because as you see on the cover of this book,
Let's show it.
I have very thick glasses on the cover of this book, and so this is one thing that made me very socially awkward.
Yeah, self-conscious.
Yes.
Yeah.
And even to the point of where peers started to distance themselves from me.
Oh wow.
So you get that feeling, that kickback of, okay, he a nerd, he a lame, he this, that, and other. I'm no different from none of you, from the rest of you. But this was something that I had to deal with, perception.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah.
So let's talk about the book. How did you come up? Let me just grab the book right quick. And that's the first thing that kind of came across to me was that picture. And I know this is probably like a school picture from and I remember like at that age, like how self-conscious we all were.
Yeah.
Trying to find our place, finding yourself is such a huge part of your social development and development as a person.
Absolutely.
So I just want to know, what were you thinking about the book? Tell us a little bit about the book. If you could come up with a brief synopsis that doesn't ruin the book for people. What was the spirit of it? Well,
I think first and foremost, writing it was just therapeutic for me.
Okay.
It was necessary. And now that I look back on it in hindsight, hindsight is 2020. That was the main thing that the Lord wanted me to get out of it. First and foremost was what the self-therapy that I would get out of writing, from writing it. So just because it was a painful period. So to write about it is cathartic, it's therapeutic. So personally, it was healing for me. And I think anybody in our age group, I'm an 80s baby. I'm a millennial. I didn't know I was a millennial until last year. I was born in 83. I didn't think I made the cut, but I found out I'm a millennial.
You're a millennial.
So I think anybody in that generation can relate to it, particularly black men, young black men, and things that they've encountered in their younger years. So I hope my story can encourage and possibly motivate somebody to write their own story.
Question for you: when thinking about the childhood, elementary school ages, kindergarten, like very primary ages, it seems to me, like from my observation, that like who you are as a person and like how you think,
Yes.
and how you think about yourself, like how you think about yourself as an individual is the armament that you have as you get older and you go through certain things to be able to deal with
Absolutely.
What you deal with. And oftentimes I think in past generations,
Yes.
particularly in as a black,
Yes.
in the black community, children were kind of seen as marginalized figures that should be quiet, that were almost
Seen but not heard.
Not whole humans. But the thing is all people fully absorb the messages that they feel. And what do you feel like is the effect of being a child experiencing life in a time where the messages that you get, you're super vulnerable to accept it.
Right.
And then not having righteous counsel.
Absolutely.
Right, like we talk about the need for fathers and support systems as a whole, but just being so young and being in that building phase of who you're going to be.
Yeah, I'm so glad you just asked that question, because that touches really the heart and the crux of this book. Because as I said, because I had poor eyesight, and because I had to wear these glasses, and this is actually the first pair that I own, but in the 4th grade, I actually got a bigger pair.
They didn't have a high density back then.
So this didn't, make people want to kick it with me, alone. But I got even a bigger pair in the 4th grade. But I was thrown into, at a time when I couldn't articulate it, I was thrown into an identity crisis. Because you see, when you're young, and the neighborhood kids, like, during the summers when we were out of school, I talk about, summer of '91 was one of the best summers of my childhood. We played tackle football religiously. We got into mischief like boys do. But as my peers around me, as we began to get older, 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade, children become more self-conscious. They become more self-aware and more aware of what standards are. This is cool, this isn't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the same boy who you used to kick it with and play football with, now you see me with these thick glasses, and all of a sudden it's not cool to hang around me, simply because of association.
Yeah.
He looks like a nerd, and I don't want to be standing next to him, because what would it look like if I'm associating with this dude who looks like a nerd?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I started to notice that people were projecting onto me that I'm something that isn't cool to be around.
Yeah.
I like the same thing you like.
Yeah.
You like sports, I like sports. You like girls, I like girls. You like this, I like that. But you size me up in 2 seconds and assume that I'm this.
Yeah.
And people stand back from you. And I got that from my peers, and I got that from adult figures. So not knowing how to deal with that, I know I'm one thing, or I feel like and believe I'm one thing, but I'm getting these projections. So you're right that if you're not strong enough to stand against that, right, you will carry the pain of that even into your adulthood. I think that for women, it's probably a little girl still in them. For men, it's probably a little boy still in you, hurt and wounded.
Yeah.
So this was me going back and trying to do my part to heal that wounded little boy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh man, I feel you. And the funny thing about it is that my older brother, like, it's my mom had 5 boys that 6 boys, but 5 boys that lived, right? And so my oldest brother was very small.
Okay.
Very, very, very small, right? And like in the neighborhood, we playing ball and we doing all that. So he's not really winning on that thing because he's really small. But he also had like these huge trifocals. And people used to call him Professor. That's what they called him around the neighborhood. They called him Professor. Luckily for my brother, there was a lot of other identities he was able to latch on to. Like my mom and my dad, me and my brothers, we were like a singing group.
Okay.
Right? Like, and we was in church singing. And so like when we went to school, we was this, but we had other things.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
So my brother, that was the older brother, who they called Professor on the street, when we went to the church on Sunday afternoon, he was like church Michael Jackson, because he was supremely talented and he has these things. So it makes me, the reason that's real bad, like, because I watched it. I love my brother. I don't like to see people picking on my brother. And I observed him absorb it and kind of deal with, like, how do I find my place when, How did you find your place at that time?
As a child, or carrying just even as I got older? Because
as a child.
As a child, I would say that I didn't. This book is very much about some of the traumas that I went through, and whether I knew that that's what I was doing and not struggling and fighting against those challenges. You know what I mean? Yeah. What I noticed is that, and I don't talk up too much about that because I try to keep it just in that 6-year period, but I noticed that there were some things in my young adulthood, particularly when I went away to college, little things about myself that I began to notice had their roots in what I experienced here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so certain insecurities I might have, certain things like I speak about, the one thing I do touch on, because my teacher made it a routine thing to embarrass me in front of our class, to the point where I stopped participating. I stopped raising my hand to answer questions and whatnot because I felt I was convinced by the way she publicly embarrassed me that I didn't know the answer. Even when she would say, "What is a noun?" I knew a noun names a person, place, or thing. You know, but I would keep my hands quiet. I would keep my hand down and wouldn't attempt to answer for fear that I would get the, you know what I mean?
That you would be like kind of agreeing with the nerd thing, and in a kind of protest against that teacher's treatment.
Well, for me, it wasn't so much a protest as much as it was me being scared. She had what happened was, and I don't want to give too much of the book away. But what happened was the first month, I'd say, of 3rd grade, I was very enthusiastic, very zealous. Every question she'd ask, like the rest of my classmates, ooh, you know, everybody, classroom full of kids raising their hands. Yeah. And long story short, one day, I guess she just got sick of me. Sometimes I get it right, sometimes I wouldn't get it right, but I would still raise my hand on every question. In the middle of class, one day, she just stopped and said, "Marcus, why don't you just put your hand down?" And for me, that may not be impactful to anyone else.
But I can see the impact of a statement.
It's just that. Like, it was like punching me in the chest. Like, and from that moment on, I stopped participating because I felt like, okay, well, I don't have nothing to contribute. You know, I don't have the ability to answer the question correctly. You know, she was irritated enough with me to say that in front of the class, and it was extremely embarrassing. You know? Yeah. So out of fear that I would get the answer wrong, any question she asked, I just didn't participate. But she saw that I was scared, but what she began to do was call on me anyway when I had my hand down. And so what would happen was there'd be 15 seconds, 20 seconds of dead silence in the class while I've got my hands like this and I'm not answering with my hand down. And she would do that routinely. She would call on me, right? She would at times wait for when it looked like I wasn't paying attention to call on me, because she, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So she
vindictive.
She took the role. It became the role of like a bully.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah. So it you know, it was very unprofessional, and it was unfortunate that, you know, some of the things I had to go through with her specifically. Is the book is not just about her, but there is a chapter that talks about the second chapter of the book is called 3rd grade. So that gives you gives you insight as to how impactful that year was to me.
That is interesting. And the name is Unlovable.
Yes. I didn't mean to ramble like that. I'm sorry.
No. Unpack that for us, though. Like, why did you decide on that as a name?
Wow. It just, I just felt that it fit. I felt like, I felt like it was appropriate. I felt like, that boy, that wounded boy, who took some of that woundedness unconsciously into his manhood, that whatever feeling of being unlovable I may have felt in my early 20s, mid-20s, what have you, you know, connecting the dots, I saw that a lot of it stemmed to this period. So while the idea of being unlovable, I could bill it and title it from what I felt in adulthood, I could, you know, trace its roots here. So I felt it was appropriate to call the book, though it's about my childhood, I felt it appropriate to give this book that title.
Man, that title it strikes a chord with me. Like something about it, but without knowing it, without knowing the story that you were gonna say,
Yeah.
it strikes a chord with me because I feel like there's a lot of particularly black males that know what it's like to be in an institution and to be so degraded as to feel that puts you in a situation where you feel unlovable.
Right.
Right. Like if you got other kids and you're literally watching people get such like the social constructions around their worth as human beings be so disparate from your own that like what other choice would a child have as to feel unlovable?
Right.
Right. And for me personally, it in my school thing, and I did not have the same experience that you had, but I know what if I hated school basically because I felt like school was a place for me to be degraded.
Yep.
Right, like literally. And what I took from that is that as an adult now, I got a 21-year-old son. But when it was time to, deal with my child and children under my care, I decided, knowing that this environment is this toxic, I want to make sure that I'm an advocate for my child to make sure that this is impossible.
Yeah.
Right? You feel what I'm saying? Like, when I show up for my kid in the kindergarten, I want to make sure that there's no way that this teacher can get away with keeping this going on. And this is the thing. In our generation, we come from a generation, spare the rod, spoil the child. So like if you go to school and you get in trouble, you might get taken out the classroom and get your butt whooped and come back with tears in your eyes.
That's right.
All right, which just further acknowledges the systemic so like my question to you as a man, like how does that make you think about our systems, our schools, our how we parent, our relationships within our families, like how does that experience make you activate towards how you're going to behave in the future?
Well, I mean, just looking at it from the standpoint of, well, one thing, if there is a young person, I know there's no if to it, that is experiencing similar to what I experienced, it is crucial, like what you said, it's crucial that they know that they're loved and they have such a strong sense of self and such a strong support system from home. Be that their parents, be that, auntie and uncle, be it someone close to them who they see regularly, that they know they get such confidence and such an identity from who they are amongst family, that it forms a very strong juxtaposition against what they might be facing in school. And if they're not getting that, then they are walled in. They're trapped between the teacher bullying them or teachers bullying them and peers bullying them and what they're not getting here, right? And so that just reinforces what they're feeling, and they feel like they don't have anywhere to run.
All right, before we get too deep into it, I don't want to let time go by. I want to give you a chance to give out all your social media to let the public know, like, how they can get a hold of the book.
Yes, so my name is Marcus Pittman, and again, the book is entitled Unlovable. It is a memoir. I am on Facebook. At the moment, I don't have a whole lot of social media stuff going on, but I am on Facebook. And the book can be purchased on Amazon.
On Amazon.
Soon it will be on a lot of digital platforms where they can get it on Kindle and get it in ebook format and so forth. But for now, if interested, you can purchase the book, the paperback format of the book on Amazon.com.
Okay, that is excellent. So everybody check out my man Marcus Pittman. The name of his movie, the name of his book, that is Unlovable, and it's available on Amazon, and you can catch him on Facebook, Marcus Pittman.
Yes.
But before we get gone, just on a lighter note, what do you think about if there's one thing that's happening in the air in politics and sports and whatever, what's got your eye right now?
Well, obviously, seeing what's going on with Donald Trump and wondering if we're going to be able to, actually execute his being impeached, and hoping that process isn't one that is, just goes on and on and on and on and on, but that, and then also obviously, my prayers being with the Bryant family,
Kobe.
and not just he and his daughter and their loved ones, but the other 7 in that crash, and that's definitely impressed itself upon me. Yeah, those are the main things going on right now.
Well, I think the impeachment thing, unfortunately, that didn't work out too well. That's pretty much a done deal as of today. But
Really?
Yeah. But our prayers do go out to Kobe and his family. That's such a terrible tragedy. What happened with him and his daughter, super horrible. But I mean, it was a pleasure to meet you. It's a pleasure to meet somebody that is Cleveland's own.
Yes,
man, it is super impressive to see someone fight through some of the kind of ideological things that we're affected by and impacted by.
Yes,
and to watch a black man be vulnerable and be honest.
Yeah.
A word about honesty.
Well, honesty, it serves you and it serves others around you, vulnerability, as I'm learning, it serves you and it serves others around you. There can be some woundedness that comes along with being vulnerable, but I think the person who's able to be vulnerable, there's a strength in that.
Yeah.
Definitely a strength in that.
Definitely. And I definitely think for all the people like us, I'm from the neighborhood. I'm from Akron, but like we got a neighborhood too.
Oh yeah.
And growing up in that situation where it's just certain stuff that like I don't know you personally, but I know that you grew up in a similar situation where just simple stuff like being in elementary school and like fighting, being a way of accruing social capital. Like, all right, just like
Making
being the
a name
fastest
for
kid in the
yourself.
class,
Yeah.
or being a whatever, or having stories about this arcane type of toughness or whatever.
Yeah.
Really, the community needs more voices like you, and I applaud you.
Wow. I appreciate it, man. That's very encouraging. Thank you.
All right, guys, thanks for tuning in today, and we'll see you next Tuesday at 6:30. Thank you very much.
The camaraderie was really good. It was really good. I thank you. I enjoyed it. I wanted to jump in so bad. But you know what? When you said